Is Duke leaving the ACC conference? I think we've had a ton of this lately, and I guess I should not be surprised. But enough of you DM'd me links to this story, if it is that. And I think it's very interesting the way now people in the ACC are so thirsty for anything to happen that all we're doing now is taking any story that sounds even remotely interesting and turning it into facts. And my struggle with this is, do we talk about this as a show, or do we just blow it off as an old man who probably wants to still be coaching football but is not, went on a radio station in Nashville and blew off steam? Because that's what this feels like to me. And again, I think, as we've talked about ad nauseum, the situation in the ACC is very volatile. There's no doubt about that. But when you look at Duke's situation uniquely and specifically Duke, we've talked about on this show, our sources have told us for months now that the Big 12 has had significant conversations with Duke, but also with North Carolina, the Virginias. The Big 12 has aggressively reached out through back channels and relationships to most members of the ACC, and that is not a surprise. What is the surprise is now you have somebody that has, I don't know, is some modicum of respectability. Is that the right way to say it? Pete Cordelli, a former kind of football coach. He's most known for his time at Notre Dame in the 90s. He went on a Nashville radio station and said this.
It was my understanding that there's going to be a new ACC, and Jim Phillips, the commissioner, has been talking. It looks like they may reconfigure the ACC to be 8 teams. And the saber rattling that's gone on with Florida State, with Clemson, and now North Carolina, to be honest, they've been looking for a year. One of the things was, were they going to the SEC? Were they going to Big Ten? What are they doing? I think Jim Phillips, in this latest meeting in Florida, we're going to see a slimmed down ACC to keep their status.
What sense does that make? What sense does that make? So just a couple of questions right off the top from old man Cordelli. A slimmed down ACC with 8 teams. The idea is you're trying to keep Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina. You're trying to placate them. So do you think you can placate them with an 8-team league that will make significantly less money? The answer is no, you cannot. Because with a slimmed down league comes far less respect and far less currency in the ranking systems, and certainly in the college football playoff. Jake, this makes very little sense to me, if any sense at all.
And I think that the biggest thing that you know, like, that I take away from what this guy said is just the way he's saying it and the lack of detail in it. Like, all I hear here is, hey, yeah, you know, Jim Phillips may have said or may not have said that, you know, that maybe the league could do this or do that, right? Okay, cool. Like, I can tell you that this guy over here you've never heard of said X, Y, and Z. That doesn't make it true. And I think that the reason that I would say that this is not true is much to what he said, but just overall, like, it doesn't make sense. You wouldn't put yourself in a position as a conference, given the position you're already in. You wouldn't make that worse by saying, yeah, you know what? We're going to go ahead and cut these teams. You know, hey, Calford, we're going to need you to head back to the West Coast. SMU, yeah, we're going to need you to keep working on that pipeline to Texas that never existed. And then everybody else who's not a college football playoff contender or isn't in the tournament every year, yeah, you're going to have to leave our league too. By the way, just quick question. So let's say that they do, quote unquote, cut teams out of the ACC. How's that going to work with your TV partners? How's that going to work with the grant of rights? Are you now paying those schools what's owed? You're telling me now that if you want to cut schools, a conference is going to negotiate their early exit fee and what, reimburse them? Like, this is not going to happen. You can't, it doesn't work this way. And for that reason alone, that's why I think this is a bunch of nothing, because ultimately that's not how business is done in college football. You don't just say to whatever team is on your grant of rights that you don't like because they don't earn revenue that now they no longer have a spot in your conference. I got news for you. You signed your grant of rights through 2036, which is the other thing that nobody seems to want to talk about in this interview that this guy did. He didn't even know how long the ACC grant of rights was. His guess was 2033, I think. And that's just not correct. It's 2036. Like, you have to know the situation to be able to speak on it. So everybody's freaking out over this interview. Everyone's saying, oh my God, you know, the ACC is going to burn to the ground and do something we've never seen before. And for me, it's much to do about absolutely nothing, because the ACC and any conference, what we could be talking about the SEC, hell, we could be talking about the Mountain West.
And my biggest question is, if you remove Duke and Wake and Syracuse, and what does this do to your basketball revenue? Like, this is, again, to my point, this feels like an old dog howling at the wind. That's what this feels like. And in all seriousness, Pete Cordelli, I don't know why he has a weekly spot in Nashville, but hey, more power to you. I'm telling you that if Duke leaves the ACC will be done.
Yeah.
The ACC is done. Duke and North Carolina, again, I will say, are the heartbeat of the ACC. You look at what, inexplicably, Dabo Swinney continues to say about NIL and the portal, and that he does not like and does not embrace NIL and the portal. That's the stuff that's hurting the ACC. It is this constant flow of BS and half-truths that is crippling this league. Nothing that Pete Cordelli said there is credible. Nothing that Pete Cordelli said there is helpful. The only thing Pete Cordelli did yesterday was damage the ACC further. Mm-hmm. And that's what continues to happen. This league's never going back to 8 teams. It's one of the dumbest things I have ever heard. And the idea that ACC fans are so rabid for information that you're all running and DMing us on this is crazy to me, because the world is laughing at you. And I will beat the drum of basketball revenue being significantly more important than anybody wants to talk about. You look at how this NIL settlement, which yesterday the D1 Council approved the original settlement, which means that the NCAA is going to cut distribution to major conferences and universities. Where do you think that money is coming from? What is the #1 revenue generator for the NCAA? Well, that'd be the NCAA tournament, which now is likely going to pay the lion's share of these NIL settlements. And these schools are going to suffer because of it. Should those in the ACC be looking for an off-ramp? Yeah, maybe. Sure, if that's what you feel like, Florida State, Clemson, Carolina, Duke, okay, great. I understand that you're upset. We're going to talk about Big Ten and SEC revenue today. You should be upset if you are not making half of what they're making. I totally understand that. But the idea that the ACC would cut teams like Wake, Syracuse, and Duke to go back to 8 to give Carolina, Clemson, and Florida State more revenue makes absolutely no sense. It makes no sense. This guy's wiping his ass with his left hand and drawing artwork in the remnants in his right. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what this is. This is a guy. I don't understand it. And I know I say this all the time, but I wish fans were smarter than this. I wish people had more ability to say, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to put that on every message board that I pay $7 a month to and start a wildfire. Like, I wish that's not how this game played out.
But you're right. I mean, the ACC fan is absolutely thirsty for something to happen.
Desperate.
And that's what surprises me a bit too about the situation is like, we obviously saw this a bit in the Pac-12 situation, right? Like, Oregon State fan was just so like up and down with like the news cycle and the Pac-12 thing. And like, we saw that a bit, but this feels a little bit different. This feels like ACC fan just wants action and doesn't really care whether that action, leads to them getting to greener pastures or whether that action just means they're staying in the conference. Like, they just want something to happen, to which I say, hey, this particular interview, and again, not making it personal, but just going off of what we know, going off of what makes sense based on how business works in this situation.
Right.
It is truly, when I first heard this interview, my first reaction was, this is a radio show and a guest both trying to get some pub. That's all this is.
And it worked.
And it did work. Yeah, give him credit. It did work. Absolutely, it worked. And that's what you have to be able to kind of read between the lines on and understand. Like, you notice, and you can go and find the interview. It's all over X. But you can tell when someone actually has people telling them something. And in this interview, he didn't have people telling him something, because if he did, he wouldn't be hesitating and trying to come up with words like saber rattling and like you were just trying hard. And I get it. I understand it. But in no way, shape, or form are we going to see a conference cut teams out of the conference to reroute revenue. Why do you think? And if they were going to cut teams, I might just add this too. Why would they have, what did they call it? The Success Initiative or whatever, where they're paying schools on an individual basis more money the further they go in the tournament? Why would they do that if they were going to just cut, if the plan was just cut the bottom feeders out?
I think it's one of those things where you just have to separate it. And here's what we know about the ACC. They're very vulnerable. This very much feels like what was going on in the Pac-12. This very much feels like, hey, every conference in this country, every conference commissioner in this country is calling every one of your members saying, hey, look how green our pastures are, which is exactly what was happening in the Pac-12. And it's why the Big Ten went so far out of their way to say, hey, we don't want to be seen as the Raiders of the Pac-12. And I totally understand that. This feels like that. I can also tell you, Duke and Carolina are a package. They're not going anywhere without the other.
Yeah.
I don't know what ultimately happens with NC State. There seems to be a significant rift in methodology between North Carolina and North Carolina State. Maybe there always has been, and maybe there always will be. But it does not feel like to me, based on the people that we've spoken to about it, that those two are tied at the hip. And I think it goes down almost just like Arizona and Arizona State, who were on completely opposite ends of the spectrum when the chips came down in the Pac-12. And Arizona State wanted to stay in the Pac-12, and Arizona said, nah, we're leaving no matter what. And the Arizona Board of Regents backed them in that.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at North Carolina and North Carolina State, they're not tied at the hip. I look at Duke and North Carolina, they know they have leverage as one, and I think those two are going to stay together no matter what. And I think ultimately they end up in the Big Ten. I think the Big 12 would bend the knee in any way, shape, or form they were told to get Duke and Carolina in their conference. Not going to happen.
Right.
I don't see that happening unless something completely changes. But again, I tell you that I don't believe there's any way that, especially if you're Stanford and Cal, and I guess to a lesser extent SMU, but I don't see any way that you just sign on to this grant of rights for the next 78 seasons and the ACC is going to turn around and be like, yeah, you guys kick rocks.
How does that work, dude? Like someone's getting paid in that instance, and it's not going to be the SEC, or it's not going to be the ACC.
And you understand that then you have to go back to the TV networks and unwind the amended contract you just made less than a year ago. How do you think ESPN is going to react to that when their deal with the ACC no longer has a Western front, and their deal with the ACC no longer includes? Do you really think ESPN's just going to let Duke and Carolina walk to the Big Ten and not have any access to Duke and Carolina basketball.
Nope.
Not have any way to have that game on their network, Duke versus Carolina, 3 times a season. I don't see ESPN doing that. I don't see them doing that. Why would you?
Yeah, you wouldn't. I think, ESPN is not stupid. And I think, in a time when, ESPN is moving, obviously to direct to consumer, now more than ever, you need things like Duke and Carolina. You need, the pinnacle of sporting events as much as you can get them. And that's why I say, like, it really stands out. Like, when you listen to someone talk about college football, let's just call it realignment, if you will, for a broad label. When you hear someone talk about realignment and they don't know anything about like how a TV contract works, they don't even know when the grant of rights goes to.
They don't know the difference between a grant of rights and a TV contract.
Like we talked about that too. That's a good point. Like you can tell the people who are in this daily and who understand the minutia of it, how a TV contract and a grant of rights work off of each other and kind of power grab each other, and how that works inside of a conference. And I don't know. We haven't had, go out and get the spotlight type interview in a little while. And I guess
feels like that.
I guess I shouldn't be surprised, because obviously, it's the East Coast,
it's Nashville.
It's Nashville. Like, you understand it. But it's just a ridiculous thing to say that the ACC is going to be out here cutting teams. Like, come on.
We'll play it one more time for you before it dies. A hopefully painful, slow, methodical, what a jackwagon death. Pete Cordelli on the Bill King Show.
It was my understanding that there's going to be a new ACC, and Jim Phillips, the commissioner, has been talking. It looks like they may reconfigure the ACC to be 8 teams. And the saber rattling that's gone on with Florida State, with Clemson, and now North Carolina, to be honest, they've been looking for a year. One of the things was, were they going to the SEC? Were they going to Big Ten? What are they doing? I think Jim Phillips, in this latest meeting in Florida, we're going to see a slim down ACC to keep their status.
A slim down ACC to keep their status.
And what status would that be, sir?
Yeah, I'm curious. What status would that be?
Oh, what are you talking about, man?
I just, yeah, there you go. There it is. Let me just throw it out to you guys, like I threw it out to your mom. That didn't work.
It
didn't.
It is. Yeah,
Do you buy this? Do you believe this? I'm telling you again, I don't buy it. I don't believe it. I don't think there's any truth to it. The idea that North Carolina would stay in the ACC without Duke, just from a basketball perspective, is wild to me. But hey, I'm just little old Monty over here.
Monty.
Hey, Monty. So let's see where you guys come down on this. Steve Stepanek, hello. Is this a way for the ACC to implode? I don't think so. If the ACC wants to implode, they've got 10 members to do it.
Yeah.
Because again, you need, by all accounts, you need a majority rule. So you'd need 10. Let's count Duke, Carolina, Clemson, and Florida State. I think you can put the Virginias in there. That's 6 right there. I think you can put Miami in there. That's 7. North Carolina State makes 8. And you put Louisville and Notre Dame would be the topper on that, because Notre Dame's not staying in a league without the other 8. I think that's the 10 that would be out. So I think if it's going to implode, that's the way it will happen. It's not going to be Jim. Can you imagine Jim Phillips after all these lawsuits? Yeah, guys. Okay. Florida State, you were right the whole time. We're going to kick Duke out and give you their money.
Heck
And can you imagine Florida State being like, all right, cool. So wait, let me get this right, Jim. You're going to give us Duke's money, Jimmy, but we're going to be in a league that won't have Wake Forest and won't have Syracuse and won't have Duke. And we're Florida State, who's actually got a pretty solid basketball program. So our basketball revenue is going to be significantly diminished. Yeah. Sounds great, huh? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Salty Virginia peanuts.
Nuts.
Conferences are getting bigger, not smaller. Kicking teams out is a bad way to try and survive. Yes. Yes. Mountain Mama, I think if they had to do it over, they would now. But that ship has sailed. They would now. Okay. Okay. ACC never wanted. Well, West Virginia should have gone to the ACC. Let's not.
That would have been a better fit.
Let's not confuse that. Eric and Raleigh, the dude in the clip you played is clearly high. Reefer is widely available.
Is a hell of a drug.
I'm just saying. Steve Stepanek, my friend, hope you are well. Phil, it's the Biggie 10 too. Yeah, they're going to the Biggie 10. It's just wild to me, but it's fine. Phil Fenzer, hello. I can't wait till the P4 collapse because of greed.
Which I think is a reasonable conversation to be having. I think.
You guys want to you want to talk about greed? Do you want to have your mind blown? Let this blow your mind. This is what greed looks like. Do you guys know what this represents? This represents the Big Ten being a cash cow. Sportico. The balls on Sportico. So most of you probably do not understand that as a charitable corporation, when you are set up legally with the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, as a C3 charity, we make a ton of money and keep it for ourselves. Did you guys know that you can go to any charitable organization set up like that, and you can walk in the front door and you can say, we want to see your tax disclosures, and they have to give them to you on the spot.
Jeez.
Did you guys know that? Well, apparently the Big Ten knew that because Sportico walked in the front door the other day because the Big Ten was hemming and hawing about disclosing their tax documents. Sportico decided to head for Chicago, walked in the front door at the Big Ten and was like, hey, we want to see your documents. And the Big Ten said, okay, sure, here they are. What do you guys think of these numbers? This is revenue. How about $880 million for the Big Ten in fiscal year 2023?
I thought you said 800.
I said 880
mil.
I said 880 million dollars.
Man, Connor Stalions had a good year.
How about the SEC? Oh man, they're struggling at $850 million according to Sportico. So when we talk about the Super League, would it blow anybody's mind if a year from now these two were over $1 billion each?
No.
That would not surprise me at all.
Not even a little bit.
I mean, if you, bro,
like that's like an unfathomable amount of money, bro. Like that's so much money.
That's what we're talking about. And now you want to go ahead and make the argument that this league right here, oh yeah, Monty, let's cut this league down to 8 teams and compete with the Big Ten or the
right.
SEC. Seems
right. Seems proper.
Yeah, I'm Pete Cordelli. I don't know dick. That's never happening. You guys, I said
they're
that
going to cut down the ACC. And you know what the best part is? They're going to do this to keep their status.
I said $880 million.
How exactly
are
you keeping your status by being at 8 teams when the two homies over here are working on a bill each?
Now, let me point some things out for you. This does not include the new TV deal. This does not include the new members of the conference. This does not
So they're
include,
definitely going to be over $1 billion.
This does not include the national championship won by Free Harbaugh. They're going to be over $1 billion next year.
Yeah.
You understand that, right? You understand that this money, they distributed $60 million to each of its members, with Maryland and Rutgers earning slightly less because they're newer members. They also spent $5 million in legal fees and $440,000 on lobbying. The highest paid employee, Jim Delaney, the former commissioner, made $5.8 million. Kevin Warren received $3.7 million, and then on top of that, got a bonus for negotiating the TV deal. Sportico previously reported the Big Ten, ACC, Big 12, and Pac-12 had been planning to release their tax filings together at the end of next week. The Big Ten agreed to release it Monday after Sportico walked in and flopped it on the counter.
Yeah.
How gangster is Sportico?
Yeah, that's pretty, dude, that's the folks at Sportico knowing business.
The fiscal year, and I want to make sure that you guys understand, they made $880 million. The final 12 months of the Big Ten's previous broadcast rights deal before it signed a 7-year, $7 billion deal.
But Monty, listen.
7 years and seven. I said, that's $1 billion a year.
Stay hard.
$1 billion a year.
Monty, we can cut down to 8 teams and get to 800
Monty, it's Pete Cordelli here.
Come on, Monty.
I don't know shit.
Monty, his Buc-ee's pulled pork sandy consumption is at an all-time high. Give him some slack. I thought you said $1 billion each, bro. Come on.
Before they made $880 million before the new TV deal kicked in.
Dude.
Can I get some of whatever that is? Because I need to be that.
Listen, I'm gonna need some people to reach out for me and try to get me a weekly radio spot so I can just try stuff on that radio spot. I'm gonna need that. Come on, dude.
God damn.
Like
before the $1 billion deal, they made almost $1 billion.
Dude. And then folks like Val Ackerman have the balls to come out yesterday and say that they're paying too much. Come on now.
But I think it is an interesting question.
My God.
Should the Big Ten and the SEC, because this is what we do in this country. We try to
shame the rich,
demonize the rich.
Yeah.
Should the Big Ten and the SEC have to pay more? And I say absolutely not. Is it their fault that they earned more? No. This is what we should be celebrating in this country, but we don't. That's before the $1 billion TV deal.
Staggering number. And again, the idea that that's each conference, dude, that's not combined.
It's wild to me.
It's a staggering number.
It is wild to me.
And I do agree. I have to say, it's a very good point. The Sportico thing, them having the as Marshawn would say, the mentals to think about, hey, this is how IRS code works. We can just walk in here and get this stuff. That's pretty brilliant. Like, we don't see that in reporting too much. So
I agree.
They deserve a lot of credit for that.
I agree. I find it interesting. And a friend of mine who works in sports radio says, and we wonder why sports radio is broken. I don't. It sucks. Right?
Dude.
Right? And that's as concise as I can put. Sports radio is terrible.
It sucks.
It's terrible. UW fan Jim Romadunze, when I hear crazy news, the Monty Show is the place to sort it out. We try. Christopher Shannon, hello. Kick out Boston College, Syracuse, completely useless. I mean, those fucking guys, what have they ever done for us? Well, they put Matt Ryan in the NFL. Who cares? Ask Tom Brady how good Matt Ryan is. Well, I mean, Jim Boeheim. He ran a guy over. That's a good point, sir.
Well, my foot just slipped. It is what it is.
Well, listen. Donovan McNabb played at Syracuse. Yeah, he threw up on the field. Again, I'm not saying you're wrong.
Monty, he was just fertilizing the 50-yard line.
You know, I mean, what about Coleman at Syracuse? Lefty and I'm sorry, I thought you said completely useless. Derek Coleman. Who has thought of Derek Coleman lately? Me either. But do I get no credit for pulling Derek Coleman?
Yeah.
You don't even know who the fuck Derek Coleman is.
Nope.
No, so yeah, you're right. Again, I just have 4 little numbers. 1993.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know. Was Cordelli as crappy at Notre Dame as he is in Nashville now?
Bro, chill.
Okie Light James.
Oh.
Stadium guru who loves Buc-ee's. I believe that's the title of his channel. The Super League will solve all the problems. I just did a 3rd video on it.
Wow.
I'll release number 4 today. 8 divisions of 10 teams just makes sense. It could. I don't disagree. Dude has Bill Belichick hair.
That's what I'm saying, right? But he does. He really does. The comb over.
Oh, that's
the comb
amazing.
over is totally a Bill Belichick style.
Okay,
cut.
now but I don't want to play the bite again. Do you just have a okay? God damn it. See, why am I always the one who's got to go Google searching dudes in their forearms?
Here, I got you.
Pete Cordelli. I don't even know how to spell his name. Pete Cordelli. Oh, he does
that
have
one. That's the one I'm trying.
He does have Belichick vibes. Yes,
he does.
Sir Bob
Dude,
Lobb nailed
are you
it.
kidding?
Nailed it. He does. Okay, put it over here. Jake is trying to like airdrop me pictures of Bill Belichick. Weirdo. How do you have Bill Belichick on airdrop?
I don't.
Oh, sorry. That was Pete Cordelli. You were saying picture of Pete Cordelli. My bad. Here's Bill Belichick. Does Bill look like Pete Cordelli? I don't have a picture of Pete Cordelli, but here's Bill Oh, wait, that is Pete Cordelli? Okay, they're telling me in my ear that is Pete Cordelli.
Yeah, we're not making any changes.
Really, really close. Like, I mean, it's almost like Jordan and Anthony Edwards. I could be wrong. Or Jimmy Butler. Anyway, the point is
3 ladies a night, every night. Dude.
Michael Jordan.
Macaque.
Dude, there was nobody that guarded like Michael Jordan.
Dude, Buddy went hard in the paint, dude.
Two Masters. The disillusion theory is dead in the water. Disillusion of what? Disillusion of the ACC? I don't think it's ever been likely. I think this NIL, how do I say this? The unintended consequences I always talk about with this stuff. This NIL settlement, we're not done with lawsuits over the NIL settlement. No. I guarantee you Val Ackerman and the Big East have lawyers on speed dial, even though they're crying poor. So who's suing first over this? Who's suing the NCAA to not have to pay their fair share? Even though it's in the contracts, even though it's in the charter.
Well, the problem is the G5 can't sue because if they lose, they don't have the money. Right? They probably don't have the money to pay for the lawyers anyway.
Fuck, they couldn't even give San Diego State their pro rec. Never mind. My point is,
I'm not talking about that.
Yeah, but these are far from done. I think we won't know about the ACC until we have a clear picture of the unintended consequences of the NIL settlement. That's
totally.
I can't see a clear at this point today. And what is today? May the 4th be with you. May 21st. I can't see a path forward to a resolution of the ACC situation. I think you throw the NIL stuff in there. I think you throw the Clemson, North Carolina, and the only thing that Mr. Belichick, Cordelli, Pete Belichick said there that I thought made any sense was that North Carolina's been trying to unwind their watch for over a year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right. We told you that on the show.
Just saying.
I think we don't know what the final thread, right? Because I think we can all agree The ACC is this sweater that everybody's been pulling threads out of. And somebody's going to pull a thread. And my guess is it's going to be Duke and Carolina, because I'll continue to tell you that the ACC lives and dies on Tobacco Road. You don't have to like it. And I always get hateful comments when we say it.
Yeah, they're a package deal.
That, well, Duke's overrated. Okay, great. They're overrated. They are the lifeblood, along with Carolina, of the ACC conference. It's not Tallahassee.
Nah.
It's not built my program on Jesus Christ, who never took a dime of NIL money. So why would we pay
in God's name, image, and likeness?
And not to go too deep on Dabo,
we built this program on NIL.
But do you understand how broke this guy is? Do you understand how bad for the ACC Dabo Swinney is?
It's probably different than what you're thinking, though.
Nobody wants to talk about that. They just want to talk about the pro rata Clemson thinks they deserve.
Right. Keyword being thinks.
Now, call me crazy. Maybe if Dabo was in the portal and embracing, I don't know, the current culture of college athletics, maybe you would have won another national championship, because nobody's a better coach than Mr. NIL Jesus Christ.
Right.
The problem with Dabo is he wants it done his way, which is why Nick Saban retired.
And which is why he hasn't had a quarterback since 5 had left for the NFL.
And why Mike Gundy won't win. You don't have, and I think sometimes in life we like to romanticize shit and who we are.
Right.
You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice, because you no longer have your thumb on the high school junior who's desperate for an offer letter. Now they have the thumb on you. And this conference, the ACC, has so much flawed theology, and they all think that they are the top of the mountain, Mom, and they're not. Is there any better example of that than Miami, the University of,
right,
who is a train wreck? And when I say a train wreck, they're a freight train wreck. And yet they think somehow they have any kind of leverage.
And I think that, again, when we talk about reporting, the idea that the ACC is going to cut their conference down to 8 teams to feed more money to Miami, you're out of your mind. What has Miami done? What consequence?
Why would Florida State agree to? Why would that make Florida State happier than they are now?
It wouldn't. It would not.
Anybody?
Because the assertion is, hey, we're going to cut this conference down to 8 teams, and we're then going to reroute the money. Hey, here's the problem with that, Slick. The money's not going to be there.
It makes me crazy. Just like when you guys come in here and you don't hit the like button, it makes me crazy. Please hit the like button. Please.
Yeah, come on. Be better, dude.
Yeah, give me the pro rata this show deserves. Hit the like button right here on the Monty Show. Let's get to more of your comments. Mike Smith, sounds like the floated an air biscuit instead. Okay.
I'm not real sure what that means.
Listen, I don't judge you for drinking this early in the morning. Sir Bob Lob says papers, please. Yeah, gangster. I don't know why I knew that, but I knew that if you're a 401c3 charitable organization, I can walk in your front door and say, I'd like to see your financial disclosures.
Yeah, cough it up.
And they have to say yes. You can be stripped of your charitable status. Now, you have to have balls behind you. If you walk in there and you're just Jake, and you're like, give me your disclosures, and they're like, fuck out of here.
Yeah.
You better have a law firm ready to drop papers in court that day.
Yeah, where's Harvey Specter?
Right? Seriously. Sportico's got that. Sportico's got that. And I that's how you do business.
Correct.
Two Master says SEC. Okay. Who gets to $1 billion first? The SEC or the Big Ten? The Big Ten. Because they've got the TV money hammer.
There's no, yeah.
But we're overlooking something. The SEC now has Tarrant County.
How did we?
The Omni Hotel, dude. They've got the Omni Hotel. The SEC.
You know what's funny? That's hilarious that got brought up. This show where this interview was done has a spot every Tuesday or Monday for this interview at an Omni hotel.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Big Ten gets there first. I would be surprised.
Yeah.
I would be really surprised.
Well, and again, I can't believe nobody's pointing this out, because if you remember earlier in the show, we said, hey, like, we got a bunch of people who reached out to us on this, like, sent us this story, like, repeatedly.
Hey, Monty,
dude, the ACC is going to get cut down, man.
I was at Buc-ee's, and some guy who's married to a Baylor fan was just going on. He was standing in front of the soda machine, mixing up the different flavors of Mountain Dew, topped it off with some cherry Dr. Pepper, which I got to tell you was pretty damn good.
Mixmaster James.
Never here nor there. Anyway, he was talking about, one day he was talking to Mike Gundy, and I guess he combs the lice out of Gundy's mullet. I mean, who am I to judge? But he was telling me, listen, man, I was knuckle deep, and he was giving me this information about So I thought I would just DM you guys.
So let me get this right.
It's not how it happened.
You're elbow deep in a conversation with Mike Gundy, and you didn't think to say to yourself, well, Monty, how is it that they're going to cut teams and keep the money?
No, what you didn't think to yourself was, bro, I'm an elbow deep. What happened to me? How did I get here? I'm Oak State James, and I comb lice out of Coach Gundy's hair.
Yeah, in the comments section, what do you guys elbow deep in these days?
Okay,
what's your
stop!
What's your cup of tea?
That's right, T.
I'm elbow deep in golf. That's what I'm elbow deep
I'm sure
in.
that's not what your elbow.
What?
Your girlfriend came back home last night. I'm sure that's not what your elbow deep in. The Big Ten gets big money because teams like Michigan and Ohio State draw 5 million viewers per football game. What about Purdue and, Minnesota?
Well, in Indiana, come on.
Yeah, the Hoosiers.
Yeah, dude, prolific on the football field. You want to talk about covering the under?
Yeah. Sir Bob Lop, 90s sports radio was the pinnacle. Yes,
100%.
It was. And I miss, you know what I miss? I had a great radio career.
Mm-hmm.
Ranked number one in great market. Like, there's something about sitting in front of a microphone when you've got the hammer. And I can tell you, I've had the great fortune of being in that situation a lot, and that doesn't exist anymore. Doesn't exist anymore.
Quick side note that I thought was interesting yesterday. Jim Rome.
Dunze.
No. This is the actual Jim Rome, the host.
Oh, okay.
It announced yesterday that he will be live streaming his show to X starting next week, which I think the only reason I bring this up is I think that's a major shift in the industry.
Huge shift in the industry. And Jim Rome, Jesus. 3 months ago? 4 months ago?
Yeah.
After the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
His last show on CBS Sports Radio and CBS Sports TV was, I want to say, the Friday of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. Yeah, in February.
And he announced that he was taking his show to Twitter. And it never happened. And so he wasn't on TV, not getting video distribution.
Still on Sirius, though.
On Sirius and on his radio show.
Yeah.
Because he has a nationally distributed radio show.
Right.
He announced yesterday, I think it was on Twitter, that he starts live streaming on X next week.
Yeah. I believe next Tuesday.
Just out of the blue.
Yeah.
So the weirdest thing ever.
Rebranded the studio, the whole thing. And I think it's really interesting, that. I don't know. I think this is where the industry needs to go.
I agree.
I think that I don't know why it's taken so long for radio professionals. And again, since that change happened for him, I haven't listened to Jim.
Haven't seen him once.
Haven't seen him literally not one time. And I just saw it pop up, and I was like, oh, it's happening.
Did you hear about? Speaking of which, did you hear about Pat McAfee getting looped into a lawsuit with Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Gee, is the guy ever not in trouble?
And I think this is kind of part and parcel of this conversation about the quality or lack thereof of sports talk radio. It's really interesting to me that Marvin Harrison Jr., if you guys don't know the story, Marvin Harrison Jr. is being sued by Fanatics because he signed a term sheet, not a contract, a term sheet, and then took the term sheet and shopped it around to try and make more money on his name, image, and likeness.
Mm-hmm.
So the story goes that Fanatics has deals with college athletes. I mean, a ton of them. They sign them to 4-year deals so that when they get to the NFL, they can sign their NFLPA contract, which the NFLPA controls your name, image, and likeness.
Right.
So in college, Marvin Harrison never signed that contract with Fanatics. He signed a term sheet, which Fanatics says is legally binding. So then why didn't Marvin Harrison sign a deal with the NFLPA to sell his jersey, trading cards, be in a video game? Oh, because he was trying to leverage Fanatics for more money. And then allegedly leaked it to the Pat McAfee show, who then leaked it on ESPN, which spurred, allegedly, Fanatics to file a lawsuit and include Pat McAfee's name in it and accuse Marvin Harrison Jr. of allegedly using Pat McAfee to spread disinformation and damage the Fanatics brand.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's a huge shit show.
To which I say, how has this not happened to Pat before? Because he's done a lot of things like this, and he's never been sued before.
I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I would love to. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that it's
and for
silly.
those of us that I'm 51, right? I graduated high school in 91. I was born in 73, sex machine, right?
Right.
For those of us that remember sports radio, for those of us that remember the day the Score in Chicago launched and the Mike North and the Dan Jiggets of the world, and you remember FAN in New York, which I think is still one of the great radio stations in this country. Being on the radio in San Francisco at KMBR, like, that's the radio I remember. I remember Larry Lujak in Chicago. Whatever this is now, unprepared hosts that don't know the facts, can't ask questions, don't do interviews.
Like, how are you going to do an interview about college football realignment and not know that the ACC's, grant of rights with its member institutions goes to 2036? Like, you're literally out here guessing.
I don't
know. How do you not know that? And then how do you furthermore then roll out a take where it's like, oh, they're going to cut teams and they're going to reroute the money. They're going to reorganize the ACC. They're going to reformat it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it just lacks all information and perspective. And so yesterday we get all these DMs and then the Jim Rome thing comes out. And I'm just like, dude, like Jim is not for everybody. And Pat is certainly not for everybody.
No.
But I do think that when Pat McAfee is dominant in the way he's dominant, and what I mean is the numbers he does would suggest he is dominant, it's because he's on video, man.
Yeah.
And it's funny to me that in a medium that's supposed to be like connective, you're supposed to be able to really relate to your host, and you're supposed to be able to have the relationship of sorts with the show that you watch every day. If you're not on video, you can't cultivate that.
I totally agree.
To which I say more credit to Jim for recognizing that. And I'm very curious to see how X treats him because obviously we went through the Tucker Carlson phase when he rolled out to X, and he did a ton of video, and that I imagine was pretty good for him numbers wise. I don't know exactly what he got, but it's just be interesting to see now that a guy who's been in the industry for 35 years or whatever it's been, like, is going to video on a social media platform, how that impacts the industry. Because you can't tell me we're not going to see more people do it now.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt. I think you look at the way, I could have an hours long discussion about what's wrong with sports radio. I mean, invest in talent, train, coach. Everybody needs a coach no matter what you do.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in sales, you need a coach. If you play golf, you need a coach. If you're a talk show host, you need a coach. Like, invest in it, and they don't. It's wild to me. Um,